finding the tenant buyer. What are some of the processes that you do to find a tenant buyer? And then after we talk about how you attract them, we're going to talk about how you qualify them.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. So just to kind of take you on the path to my journey and what we did. So the first thing that I really did was actually contact real estate agents. At the start, we would do presentations, like small presentations to groups of real estate agents in our city, and really getting them behind the concept. Because when you think about it, if you put yourselves in a tenant buyer's shoes or a new homeowner's shoes, like the more likely person they're going to be reaching out to.
Hey, Zach Cahill, how you doing, my friend? Welcome to the show here today.
We're good to be here, Russ. Good to be here.
Hey, Zach. Most important question right out of the bat. How you doing? And more importantly, how are the two little ones doing?
Honestly, Russ, I don't think I've been better than I am right now. I think I'm feeling really, really good in a really strong mind space as well. And the little ones are awesome. They are definitely a handful, and I appreciate Mama. I'll tell you that much.
Well, it's funny how, and you and I spent a better part of a couple of years working together one-on-one with some things. And it's funny, I was just joking with one of my coaching clients last night that another one, like I have, of my coaching clients, 4 of them are expecting babies right now. And I would bet 80% of the people that I've worked with, my coaching clients, have either had a baby or have been expecting a baby while we were working together. So...
Yeah, no, it's, honestly, the kids really changed my life. Like, you've probably heard that a lot, but it really puts a why behind everything you're doing. So we definitely could not be happier.
Well, it's funny when kids come along, kids either do one of two things. We take a big giant pause and a time out, which we should while the babies are there. But in many cases, a lot of time when kids come, it increases and heightens the sense of urgency. Increases and heightens the sense of giddy up. We need to get going here. We need to build this business out so I can leave a legacy for these little ones when they turn 16, 17, 18 years old. I don't want them to be struggling like I did, and we just have a legacy. So it's kind of a funny thing when kids come along. It's either time out or giddy up. And in your case, which one was it? A little bit of both?
Yeah, it was giddy up, time in, I would say.
Time in?
Yeah, I think in the last year, just for you guys watching, we have a 2.5-year-old and an 8-month-old. So I would say the last year has been, exponential like growth and scaling, and mainly driven by the kids and our family and just the goals that we've set together. Yeah.
Now, usually what I do from here, you may, if you're watching this with my audience, you may be familiar with Zach. If you're on the Facebooks and the groups and stuff like that, you'll see Zach posting a whole bunch of stuff there all the time. But Zach, let's take a little step back, because I think you have a really cool story and a really cool journey. And I really want to focus kind of a little bit about your transition away from your employment at the time. And you were a paramedic for many, many years. And I want to focus a little bit on that conversation, but I really want to dive into today about your rent-to-own experience. So, Zach, this is your opportunity. If you could take us through a little bit about your backstory and share with our audience what makes you tick and who you are.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So for those of you guys don't know, just a little bit of backstory about myself. I didn't really know anything about real estate growing up and going through college, and I picked the profession paramedicine just because it was exciting, like I was kind of like the adrenaline junkie type, no sales experience, no real estate experience, and just kind of went through school in London, Ontario, and ended up graduating as a paramedic. And again, for those of you who don't know, it's a very challenging profession, not only in the profession, but also to get a job. So I had made a list of all the different paramedic, agencies out there, services out there all across Ontario, and just started sending my resumes out. And, it's a long testing process. Like, you do interviews and physical testing, written testing, scenario interviews. And, it's quite a hefty bill just kind of getting out of school and then having to spend money to go to all these different cities. And lo and behold, I ended up getting a call from Espanola, which I don't even know where that was, to be quite honest. I had to look it up on the map. And it turns out it was around an hour from Sudbury. Ended up going up there with my dad. It did some testing, and within a couple of weeks, I ended up being hired as a paramedic. So moved up there, stayed in a little room rental with a few other guys while I left my fiance back home. This was 2015, 2016, so definitely pre-kids, and ended up spending the first year in the paramedic industry just saying yes to everything, right? Accepting all the shifts, doing all the grunt work, getting calls at 4 a.m, driving a couple hours to go to shifts. And it paid off because 12 months later, I was offered a full-time position, which definitely does not happen too often. And catch 22, my full-time position was in a little town called Foleyet, which had like around 150 population. And I guess everything happens for a reason, because that's kind of what got me into the real estate. My paramedic partner, he had a triplex in Timmins, which wasn't too far from Foleyet, about an hour or so. And he introduced me to Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I think a lot of you guys definitely flicked the switch in my head, and it was like, what's this passive income? What's liabilities and assets? And so that definitely flicked the switch. Spent pretty well all of 2016 just learning, and same with 2017, just analyzing the Sudbury market and different strategies. Two strategies really resonated with me. One being, the rent to own, but there was also a lot of training and, knowledge around the rent to own that you really have to learn to grasp the whole concept, which, again, I didn't have. And the other one being multifamily, be able to buy something and, add value to it, right? And so my fiance and I ended up purchasing our first property in Sudbury in 2017, which was a 6-unit apartment that we turned into 7 units. And it was terrifying buying it. And we basically paused our wedding and just invested all the money into real estate. Shortly after that, during the renovation period, this was pre-BRRRR, before that was even a thing. So I had no idea we were going to get our money back out, So I was like, well, what am I going to do now? We got no money, I got a lot of time on my hands. So I dove back into the rent to own space, was able to, I would use the word harass a mentor, constantly messaging her, because I knew you have to learn from the people, the experts that are doing what you want to do. So I pretty well messaged her every couple of weeks for probably 4 to 6 months. I'm not going to lie. And eventually she finally took me on. She actually taught the creative class for Robert himself, the creative financing class, and was able to kind of get the inside scoop on rent to owns and how to do them successfully. So that was end of 2017. And then 2018, we started the rent live own business, which has, significantly grown. A couple deals were done in 2018, working with my brother and then my mother. So obviously I felt comfortable in the strategy when I'm, putting together deals with family members. And then shortly after had my first JV partner. And actually that was kind of around the time where, I started connecting with you, Russell, because I really needed to, expand how I'm going to, work with these outside investors, right? How to find them, how to raise capital from people that aren't in your A or B circle.
Yep.
So
wow.
Just yeah,
now,
that's
so sorry for jumping over there for a second.
Yeah.
It's funny. We worked together for almost 2 years, and I keep forgetting how young you are still, right? And that you've been you haven't, your journey does not start 20 plus years ago. Your journey is only 5-6 years into it. So let's fast forward to today, Zach, if you don't mind. And I do want to fill one piece of the pie in between, and that's potentially how you transitioned away from, I take it you're no longer a full-time paramedic. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, that's definitely correct.
Okay. So what is what is your portfolio? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there again. What does your portfolio look like today after these 5 years of doing this?
Yeah, so today I am the CEO and manager of 6 real estate companies. We have over 50 rent to own projects. We're in 4 different provinces as well using the rent to own strategy. I have a multifamily portfolio of around 80, 90 units. We're actually just working on a 30-unit transaction right now. Still doing property management, and also have a little wholesaling division going on for finding off-market properties. So
wow. So For those of you at home, I know you rattled that off pretty quick. So we're talking upwards of 150 plus transactions now over the course of 5 years, give or take.
Yeah, no, definitely easily.
And I know you. And I know how ambitious and how driven and how you always aim higher. I have a feeling you're just getting started. Would that be a fair assessment, Zach?
Yes, we're just getting started. Definitely.
Okay.
Go ahead. I got pretty big goals here.
Yeah. Well, do you mind? Why don't you publicly declare them for everybody here, if you don't mind?
Oh yeah. I mean, Rent Live Own is on the path to. We actually set a mission with Rent Live Own to help 10,000 families become homeowners by 2030. So we really are passionate, whether it's rent to own, helping them, or just getting them a mortgage. That's kind of one of the passions. And in the multifamily business, we're on pace to build a $1 billion empire. That's where my head's at for the multi space. It's something that I'm really, really excited about. We're definitely just getting started.
Wow, that's incredible. So Zach, can I drop your name when you have that $1 billion portfolio? And I could say I knew Zach when he was just a little punk just getting started on his first transaction. And can I drop your name when you become that big successful? You already are successful in your own right, but you probably feel you're just getting going, don't you?
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's definitely not about the money either. It's just, the lives that we can change, the team members that we can level up that have joined us, just in the last year. Like 12 months ago, we were working with 3 team members. Now we're up to like 22 people that are on our team, like working with us as leaders and teammates and virtual assistants, you name it.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible. So it's funny. It's been a few months since we had a conversation, and you've just taken things. You've taken things to the next echelon, really, Zach. I know you don't need to hear this, and you have a dad, but I'm very proud of you. I'm very proud of the work that you've done. I'm very proud of. As we were working together, I was very proud of how you leaned into some uncomfortableness, some uncomfortable conversations, some, lack of a better term, some crappy business dealings and wrong people that you started working with and stuff like that. And you just flourished, and you're just flourishing, if you will. So very proud of you, my friend. Very proud.
Thanks, Russell.
Yeah. Okay. So transitioning here, I do want to touch on this following conversation, because when we were working together, you were very strategic on how you were going to potentially transition away from being a paramedic. Now, maybe fill in a little bit of the gaps of kind of the steps that you took, because a lot of people that'll be watching this or listening to this would probably want to transition out of a job, want to transition out of, the 9 to 5, which, to be honest, guys, in Zach's case, which I'm sure he will tell you, that your 9 to 5 actually provided you with a really good, stable income. It provided you with some free time to be able to research. It provided you with some downtime while you were on call to be able to do a lot of real estate at the same time. But it finally got to a point where it was your 9 to 5 was cutting into your side hustle, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's definitely a unique story.
So tell us a little bit about that story, about how you strategically did it.
Yeah, and I maybe strategic wasn't the right word, Russ, but we'll get to that. So when I was employed basically in 2015, 2016, part of the requirement was choosing, which ambulance base you wanted to work at. So from those selections back in 2015, 2016, I never had updated it. I guess I was just too busy with real estate. And in 2020, I had an email saying that I got moved ambulance bases. And I was trying everything to get out of the move just because, I was doing one call every 5 or 6 days, just loving real estate. And I knew that this was definitely going to, be more difficult actually having to work. So I guess, number one is I don't think many people might have that luxury, but I think I was just lucky enough to have it. And then I ended up going on parental leave in 2020 of October. And then essentially I was supposed to start work at the new base back in February. And I just didn't go back, Russ. I mean, I felt kind of bad because I did not really give a lot of notice. And I am type of the quick starter, individual. And, the finances made sense as long as we're definitely living below our means, even with adding all of this extra real estate on. And at the time I had making, $4,000 or $6,000 a month, just doing the rent to own strategy, not considering any of the buy and hold strategy. But I think the main thing that made me, make the decision was just like the mind space that it freed up for me and the confidence behind it. Like I burned the bridge, I burned the boats. Like there was no, turning back. So just literally being 100% committed is what allowed me to, have my success. It wasn't that I had a spreadsheet there. I was like, oh, look at my budget. Like I did the budgeting, but it was all in the head. It was all the mind space and the commitment.
Wow. We're going to unpack that, but you said something absolutely fire there, my friend. Absolute fire. And hang on, guys, you know what happens on this show when fire comes? What happens there, Zach?
Oh,
dropping bombs, my friend. The fire you said was that you were 100% committed. You burned the ships when you got onto the island. There was no turning back. Now, to be honest, Zach, if you strategically looked back upon this, you really strategically levered what was a legitimate benefit that you had, and that's having a parental leave when Harper came, right? If you would have known the second one was coming along a little while, you should have kept it, went back for a while, and then when your second child came, you could have levered that parental leave again, if you will, right? So,
yeah, too funny.
However, hindsight's always 20/20, is it not?
Yes, it is. Yeah, and it was just like buying the sixplex, right, on the first investment. It was terrifying. Relied on mentors, and like I said, 100% commitment, no turning back is what really.
Yeah. And I would bet if you were graphing your progress on a chart of acquisitions, probably a point in the sand was when you left and you took the parental leave. Probably after that, it started going up exponentially. Would that be a fair assessment?
Definitely fair assessment. That was around the time I was still, I think moving away from some of the old partners and things like that. So it was everything just kind of came together.
Yeah. And you need to give yourself a little bit more credit. When we were working together, we put together a very strategic plan about cash on hand, cash coming in, where was the money coming from? You did have spreadsheets, by the way, Zach. I know you were diminishing it. You 100%. You didn't just, you 100% willy-nilly just went and did it, but you also had a good backing. You had a good safety net if need be. And I remember us having a conversation. You said that if this don't work, you know what, I can always go back and get another job if need be, but I don't want to.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Right on.
No, you're right. I think, the wife was a little bit shocked when I had presented the news, but
yeah, no kidding. How was that conversation?
We should get into that, but it was more so after the fact. I'm not gonna lie. We had the plan to leave the job within a year, and then just with just projecting myself in the future, just being like, okay, well, what is my life gonna be like if I'm working at this new ambulance base? And it was actually not only the busiest, but the highest paying ambulance job base, at our service. So I could have been well over six figures just working there. Still keeping real estate to my side hustle, but I am the man of commitment. So
yep. And I love what you said about one of your visions is to help 10,000 families buy a home through your rent to own program. And it was quite coincidental. No, it wasn't coincidental. It doesn't surprise me. It's the best way I want to say it. That you led with that first about helping others first is your first vision and mission. And by helping those 10,000 families buy a home through your program, you're going to benefit for that as well. But your first focus is to help that family.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it comes kind of, the reason I started the business in the first place, right? There was just a demand for that service, especially in, communities like Sudbury. And I guess one of my other passions is really just, people don't know, right? Like even me going to school, we don't get any financial education, like nothing.
Yep.
So to be able to kind of share that with others and help them, get into home ownership. I know Robert Kiyosaki is, home is a liability, but to be honest, it's actually been the number one way Canadians have built their wealth is through home ownership. So just to being able to help people get into a home, stop renting, have something that's theirs, and then provide the, ongoing support, financial support, we have a family now who might end up being one of our investors, right? And know like what other better way to help someone on a rent to own and then have that family buy a house for somebody else, right? So.
Attaboy. Hang on. There we go. Little applause there. Little smattering, a boisterous round of indifference there.
Yeah.
So Zach, that's awesome. Now, I think this is a good time. What I wanted to do is I wanted to pivot the conversation into your model of rent to own. And I think that it's a fantastic business model as an investor and also as a, the operator of the business and getting good cash flow out of it, plus somebody who wants to be a passive investor in, plus it's also helping others out at the same time. So what drew you? First of all, let me ask a better question. What is rent to own? For somebody, some of my audience will be very veteran and will know all about this, and we'll go quickly through this. But if somebody's brand new, how would you explain rent to own investing for them?
Yeah, exactly. So just super, super high level, you have people or families that are trying to get into home ownership, and for whatever reason, they're actually just getting declined a mortgage, right? The banks, especially in Canada, have very cookie cutter, guidelines, meaning if you don't check off every single box in the right way with the right type of check mark, you can get an X. And basically what that means is, you can't qualify for a mortgage. And especially like look in 2017, 2018, the rapid appreciation that, we've seen up until now in 2022, like people were just getting priced out of the market, right? The banks would say, okay, just wait 2 years, right? You look at someone that's new to moving to Canada. They don't have any credit, but they have a high paying job. They have some savings. They really don't have a chance to get a mortgage with these big banks. So, our company kind of targets that avatar with, new Canadians, self-employment, like new entrepreneurs like myself. I'm going through that right now, right? Trying to get mortgages, and it's challenging when you don't have the 9 to 5. So whatever the case may be, we're able to qualify that client, meaning, you can't buy a house today, but in 2 or 3 years, follow our action plan and we could actually be able to get you a mortgage with the same big banks. Yep. And our investors are the ones that, we have our investor, we have our tenant buyer, and the investors are the ones that basically purchase the home, and our company's in the middle, and the investors purchase the home for our tenants, or we call them future homeowners because it's a much, much different tenant profile than, your typical rental property. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we're in the middle. We're managing everything for the investor and just making it a really passive investment on their part.
Yeah. So yeah, it's brilliant. Absolutely. You did a fantastic job. I'm going to try to do my best to summarize what you just said. And so essentially there's what we call it there's 3 components to it. There's a tenant buyer, there's an investor, and then there's rent, live, own, Zach in the middle. It's almost like the Oreo cookie, cream filling in between, right?
Yeah.
And you're the bank for the tenant buyer. And what you do is you find an investor to buy the house, you find somebody to buy the house from the investor, and you're the bank in between making some profits in between.
Exactly. Yeah. Taking care of, we can go into all the work.
There's a lot of nuance. There's a lot of nuance, which we'll get into. But is that a very high level summary of that?
That's exactly right.
Okay. Well, and feel free, Zach, if you ever want to use that analogy of the cookie, the Oreo cookie, if you will, when you're explaining it. So,
it's a good one.
Okay. So why is rent to own appealing for let's talk about most of the people on this call and watching this are real estate investors. What attracted you and why is it appealing of rent to own to a real estate investor?
Yeah. So, obviously besides the, goodwill of like helping somebody, obviously you got to think about, is it going to help my portfolio? Right. So the reason I was so excited, not only for the helping part, but also was mainly for the cash flow. With a rent to own investment, you have significantly more cash flow than you would a typical buy and hold. And the reason for that is fairly simple. In a rent to own, they have 2 monthly payments. They not only have a rent payment, but they have a secondary savings credit payment that goes towards their purchase. So it's a much higher monthly income. And you're not having to worry about vacancies or maintenance or capital expenditures. I find with my multifamily portfolio, and other investors that I've worked with, right? There's constant maintenance that is going on. And, with the rent to own, it's much more consistent cash flow is the word I would love to use.
Yeah, because up front, you know the numbers up front because you have a contract with the tenant buyer about what they're paying. You have a contract with the tenant buyer what they're going to buy the house from you at the end, and it would probably just give a little bit more certainty for a real estate investor. Would that not be the case?
Exactly. I mean, it's this one strategy, rent to own, has the most exit strategies in real estate that I have ever seen, to be honest.
Okay.
We can talk about that a little bit more, but
I
would say for me, it was definitely the consistent cash flow. Like, what's the fastest path for me to make, $5,000 a month so I can leave my job was kind of where my head was at.
Brilliant. Absolutely. Now, obviously, when there's a pro, there's always a con at the same time. And I know there are some downs because here's the thing is if it was only upside, if ever there was only upside in this whole model of rent to own, every, Tom, Dick and Harry and Mary and Joan and Jane would all be doing this. But it's not as easy as it sounds by how we just painted the picture so far. So what would be some of the downsides of rent to own investing from the real estate investor's perspective?
Yeah, so I would say downsides would probably be just, it takes a lot of work and energy to find a tenant buyer. That is by far the one of the most challenging things to do, to really find a quality tenant buyer and not rushing into just picking somebody. So, I mean, if you have let's say you still have the great tenant buyer, I think another downside from an investor perspective is when we set the buyback price that the tenant's buying the house for, some properties have actually appreciated, more than that. So the tenant actually got a house below the market value. I mean, that could be considered a downside, but some investors just view it as, that's just the way that's just the way your Oreo cookie crumbles, right?
Yeah.
It could very well have happened the other way. I don't even know whether downsides I could really mention. It's just a very time consuming strategy to find the tenant buyer.
Well, you've been in it so deep, and let's put it this way: you eat, breathe, and bleed rent to own. So it's guys, I'm here to tell you is the time commitment that Zach talked about. Don't underestimate that. It is a very steep executional curve in order to get up to build out a process to be able to have a flow of rent to own tenants coming through. And that's what we're going to dive into because you're an absolute brilliant at your attracting them. And then more important than attracting is the qualification of the rent to own buyers. The other thing a little bit is for a downside that I think is you have to churn a lot of properties. Like, for example, you put a lot of time and effort into something and you get it and you only have it for 2 years and the tenant buyer buys it out from you and they get a whole bunch of equity, which is great, which is what you want. But then you gotta keep doing it and you gotta keep feeding it. You can't just sit there and set it and forget it like you have probably on your multifamily properties.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Russ. And I think from a business owner in rent to own, that definitely makes sense. So we have to have a consistent flow of tenant buyers always coming through our doors, right? Because it's only, like Russ said, typically 2 to 4 year contract, and then you lost your income, your profit from that property. For investors looking in, what we've done is usually there's also always lead time for when the actual buyout's taking place. So our preference is also to work with repeat investors, obviously. Yep. So, they typically get first priority so that their money isn't sitting, right? We close a deal, we can get them into another one if that's the strategy that they would like to use. Well,
I got a question here I'm going to ask it, but we're going to definitely jump back I'm going to come back in a second here, but just kind of to close the loop. So let's go back to the Oreo cookie analogy of you have the tenant buyers. Now, what's in it for them? Pretty straightforward. They come in, they buy a property at one price, they have a contract to buy a property the other, and in between they have a contract of how they potentially can buy it, and you're financing it, okay? On the other side, you have an investor, the other chocolate cookie on the other side. You have the investor. So the investor comes in, they put up and qualify for financing, they put their down payment, they essentially own the property, okay? Now, what does the investor typically get? Do they get all the equity upside? Do they get the mortgage pay down? What does the investor get for their transaction when they come and buy one of these properties? Or do they just get a fixed return on their money?
Yeah, great question, Russ. So the investor, how we actually structure a deal is the investor is 100% owner of the asset.
Right.
Okay. So the investor is able to benefit from, first way the investor is going to make money is the monthly cash flow, right? Which we talked about, typically in Sudbury, our deals are $500 to $1,000, right? So that's going to be paid for them every single month. They're also benefiting. Second is from the mortgage pay down. They start with, X mortgage, and through the duration of the 3 years, they're able to pay down the mortgage every single year. And the last option, like the third way they make money is through appreciation, right? So if we're buying a house today for $300,000, we set the appreciation, over 3 years at 5% a year. So the investors also exit to, like, when the house sells back to the tenant, they're getting that appreciation. So to even simplify it, first, they get cash flow, and then they get the profit from the sale, from the pay down and the appreciation.
Right. So essentially, the investor will they are the owner, and they will get all the profit centers of an owner, except the one, the appreciation number is fixed from the beginning. Right. So that's just one. But that's correct. The good news is I bet you could sit there and you could pinpoint an ROI number to an investor, and you could be within decimal points at the end of it, of what it's going to turn out. Like, you, with very crystal clear clarity, you can tell an investor what's in it for them. Okay. Okay. Yep. So we got the two chocolate chip on the cookies on the outside. Now the cream filling in between. Zach, you rent, live, own. What do you get out? How do you make some money out of this transaction?
Yeah, no, of course. So, we always refer to this as the win-win-win, right? So everyone's going to win. Rent, live, own, again, we get paid in 3 ways, just like the investor. So we have an upfront fee that is paid to us by the investor. Now, typically, it's actually just paid from the tenant buyer's down payment. So it's not like you're ever really having to invest more money to pay our fee. We could touch on that if you needed to. And then we also get paid to do a monthly management fee. This is like more of not a property management fee, but just kind of a flat rate fee. This is paid to us every single month. And that's so that we can, I would say the other really, really crucial thing about the rent to own is the follow-up process with the tenant buyer, right? So we have the credit counseling, the financial training happening between us and the tenant buyer. And we also do all of the property inspections and also the accounting for the whole deal. So that's what that monthly fee covers. And it's the same fee, rather if it's a $200,000 property or a $600,000 property, we're doing the same amount of work. And then we also, Rent, Live, Own would get a buyout fee at the end of when the deal comes to fruition, only if the tenant buyer, has purchased the house though. Okay. So that's only paid if it's successful, of course.
Okay, so let's go back again one more time. I'm very visual, and guys, if you're listening this on podcasts, I'm moving my arms all around, and I'm doing things with my hands. And if we were at a table having a beer, I'd have beer mug here, and explain it with salt and pepper shakers. So tenant buyer gets in favorable financing where they maybe can't qualify. They get a property at a set price. They know their exit price. Investor comes in, buys the house, no fuss, no muss. They don't have to do all the work of finding the tenant buyer. They qualify for the financing. They do that, and they get the mortgage pay down, they get the cash flow, and they get the appreciation. Zach in the middle with Rent, Live, Own, in order to find that tenant buyer and all that work you do, you charge essentially an acquisition fee, you charge a monthly maintenance fee, and then you charge a disposal fee at the end, and that's how you make your money. That'd be
exactly.
Woo.
You explain it better than me.
Am I a good student, Zach? You're a good teacher. You're a good trainer. You're teaching me well here, right? So.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So guys, we're here with Zach Cahill with Rent, Live, Own, and he's just dropping the fire for everybody here. And always, man, bomb after bomb. Woo-wee. It's getting hot in here, brother. Getting hot. Okay, so let's, I'm a big fan of solving problems, and that's, I believe, is the definition of an entrepreneur is a professional problem solver. Now, for you, Zach, the biggest thing and the biggest challenge that you mentioned was to attract tenant buyers and qualify tenant buyers. Isn't that like almost the bane of your existence? That's probably the one thing that stops people from really getting into this business. Would you say that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, with what we've seen in the the market as well in the last few months, right? That's also played a big impact to our business and how we had to adapt to.
Yeah.
So,
well, here's the thing is, everybody listening to this, like really what's not to love about rent to own? Greater cash flow, certainty, tenant buyer, everything is just, it sounds wonderful, doesn't it? And everybody's probably going, yeah, I want to do rent to own. And then all of a sudden now there's one big giant red flag about attracting tenant profile, attracting a tenant buyer, qualifying the tenant buyer. But here's the beautiful thing, the way you built your model, Zach, is you can actually invest into a rent-to-own property, have a professional like Zach do all the work for you. You qualify for the financing, you put the down payment down, and you get all the benefits of it with none of the work. So how is that for solving problems for real estate investors, Zach?
Yeah, no.
Now, I know what people are probably saying next is, Zach, here's my next question. Are you looking for investors, my friend, right now?
Yeah, of course. We're definitely always looking to build our pool of investors, and we do it in a pretty neat way. Like we don't do, the typical first come, first serve or anything like that. We like to have a nice onboarding process for both the investor and the tenant buyer, and allows that for, you being able to pick a tenant buyer or also like a financial pro forma that also aligns with your goals, right? Because we did touch on, high cash flow, but there are some deals that obviously have less and, higher ROI. So we do have a kind of a slower onboarding process so that we can make sure that we're getting you into a deal that suits your goals as an investor. 100%.
And guys, if you are watching and listening to this, if you're interested in getting a hold of Zach or interested in finding out if this process is for you, in the show notes and in the description below on the YouTube video, there will be a link where you can just reach out to Zach to see if this is a fit for you. But I highly encourage it. Like, honest to goodness, like seriously, own a rent-to-own property, get all the benefits of an owner without having to do a lot of the work. And most of the fees and things that get paid to Zach come out of cash flow, come out of profits, and come out of tenant deposits. So Zach, I'm trying to think of why wouldn't somebody want to do this?
Yeah, I mean, I could probably answer that.
Okay.
I think when I got into the rent-to-own business, it was like, you're either going to do it passively or you're going to do it actively, right? You're going to have the time to set aside to build your power team, to find the tenant buyers yourself. And there's definitely tons of resources out there. Happy to connect you to people that I've worked with to learn the system. But then there's also investors out there that don't have the time and they want to be completely passive. So typically the investors that we work with are just people that just want to buy a property and not want to have to think about it.
Yeah, and it's interesting. My business partner and I in Edmonton are very close to putting a model together like this ourselves, of within our new construction properties as well. We call it the home sponsorship program, right? And it's exactly the same way, but we put a little brand on it, if you will. Now I know you're going national wide, Zach. Are you okay if we just kind of target and corner the Edmonton marketplace? Are you okay with that?
Of course.
Okay. Well, I know a good realtor that'll have good properties. If you ever get a good tenant buyer, I know somebody who can go find you a good place for them, by the way. So
yeah, I mean, there's I'm involved with CAREUP organization, so that's the Canadian Association of Rent-to-Own Professionals, and we have companies from across Canada, and we constantly network and grow together, right? Because you starting that program in Edmonton, it's just going to be help bring more awareness to people about rent to own, right? That's what kind of we're all about. And
honest to goodness, one of the reasons why we're doing all this is we just are looking for more solutions for homeowners. We're looking for more solutions for people to buy homes. When you have a population and you have a lot of people moving in, lots of immigration, lots of people moving in, or kids moving out, and maybe they can't qualify for traditional financing, if you just give people less resistance and more options to buy a house, that's good for the industry, right? And that's one thing you're doing as well, isn't it, Zach?
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, so let's pivot the conversation here. So here's what I want to pivot this towards. Okay, we've talked about a little bit about the passive side. So guys, if you're interested in being maybe on the passive side of a business like this, there'll be some information below. By all means, hit it up, check us out, see what it's all about. But now there's most of the people might be a do-it-yourselfer, right? That maybe want to just learn some of the ins and outs of the doing it of yourself. So let's bust down and unpack some of the biggest obstacles from the tenant buyer, finding the tenant buyer. What are some of the processes that you do to find a tenant buyer? And then after we talk about how you attract them, we're going to talk about how you qualify them.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. So just to kind of take you on the path to my journey and what ended up we did. So the first thing that I really did was actually contact real estate agents. At the start, we would do presentations, like small presentations to groups of real estate agents in our city, and really getting them behind the concept. Because when you think about it, if you put yourselves in a tenant buyer's shoes or a new homeowner's shoes, like the more likely person they're going to be reaching out to, most likely a real estate agent. And the first question that the real estate agent asks is, are you qualified for a mortgage? And if they say no, well, that's a potential client that we could help, right? So we right now, we actually have around 80 real estate agents that are on our team, like referring as clients. So that's definitely been a good lead generator. We're all over social media, especially in our small market, like on Facebook, different Facebook groups. We run Facebook ads, Google ads, you name it, like that we're kind of generating it. I would say we're generating right now between like 5 and 10 leads every single day. But we only approve around like 3 to 5 a month.
Okay, so 5 to 10 a day. Volume. So let's call it you're generating 200, give or take 200 leads a month, and you're qualifying. What'd you say, 3 to 5?
Yeah.
So you're only.
Most are at 1%, I would say. Maybe a little bit more than 1%.
So a little over 1% of the leads you're qualifying. Okay, those are good numbers to know, and that's good. So here's the thing. Most people sit there go, well, I tried this rent to own thing and I had like 10 people reach out to me and nobody qualified. Okay, well, you need another 90 more in order to get one potential, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. It's and the thing is, doing like the advertising, like the paid advertisement, there's always, risks behind that. So you really need to make sure you have, the KPI tracking, so where that lead come from, right?
Yeah. Okay. So so it's absolutely brilliant, as a brilliant starting point is, go to the realtors. Like what you're doing is you're approaching realtors, you're giving them another option, another club in the bag, golf bag, in order to have another way of transacting another property, right? I think they would be very open to this. If you're providing a bank solution and a financing solution to somebody that can't qualify for a mortgage, I think a realtor would be very open to this, would they not?
Yeah, definitely. And they have been, and pretty well in 2017, 2018, like it was like very, like not many people knew about the rent to own, especially in Sudbury, right? So we kind of basically brought this knowledge to Sudbury. I would say real estate professions as a whole, work well, right? Even property managers, right? They have how many tenants that are just renting, mortgage brokers, like, of course. So that's kind of, our main focus has been real estate agents, but that's on our radar as well, the property managers and mortgage brokers.
So let's go back to that number, and let's just use for round numbers again. Let's say 200 leads a month that you're getting out of the Sudbury area, or is that out of all the markets you focus on, or is that kind of just out of Sudbury?
That's like pretty well Northern Ontario.
Northern Ontario. Okay. Is there, first of all, is there that many people inquiring about this program? Like, obviously, I guess the answer is yes, but I'm quite surprised that there's that many people inquiring about this.
Yeah, and I mean, you get people that like reach out and don't have any savings, right, or not even working. So you might get 200 leads, but 40 of them might be like somewhat good, right? So there's a lot of filtering, and we're going to get to that in a second. Yep. So the main thing is just being able to, have a consistent flow.
Yeah. In the world of marketing, there's a term, suspects versus prospects, right? The majority of people that you're going to see are going to be suspects. Lots of people, when you put the ad out there, buy with none of your own money, no bank financing, blah, blah. I don't know your ads, but I imagine you hype it up a little bit, I would imagine. It sounds really good for somebody that maybe can't qualify or got turned down at the bank. And a lot of people will make an application, and I would call those suspects. And then what you're doing is you're transitioning a suspect into a prospect. Okay, so here's the question I was going to ask you is, of those 200 leads you generate a month throughout all of Northern Ontario, what percentage of those, in your best estimation, are coming from professionals versus your social media and advertising campaigns? And it could be ballpark.
Yeah, I would say we should have one of our salespeople on the call. I would say probably like 25 or so, probably just from the real estate professionals. But those are also better quality leads, like hands down. Yeah. So I would say 25 out of the 200 would probably be from realtors. So 10% of the leads come from the professionals, and the majority of those are the highest quality that probably would generate, right? So that means 90% from all the other people that coming through, and you're only looking for a really small percentage points of those people, right? Honest to goodness, I bet you could probably, if you didn't have such big growth aspirations, you probably could. It just would be a little slower for your liking, but through just professionals alone, you could get enough leads to generate and to buy a half a dozen of these a year, could you not? Definitely. Okay. That's our plan to take over Canada.
Take over Canada one tenant buyer at a time. Hey, Zach?
Yeah.
You're going to kill the rental market. Is that what you're saying, Zach?
Oh, yeah. I don't think there's any room for that. But we call our real estate professionals dream supporters. So we'll take over at one dream supporter at a time because they're supporting the dream.
Nice. I love that. I love that reframe, by the way. Okay. So real estate professionals and also social media. Where, if a person was going to target social media, where would be the best? Is it Facebook marketplaces? Is it the rental websites? Is it just Facebook in general? Where are the best places on the webs?
Yeah, Facebook marketplace, definitely. We have constant ads running for houses that in the for rent section. Also Facebook groups and just our main rent live own Facebook page. Those are kind of our big three for the social media.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so that's, guys, in the world of marketing, here's the flow. It's generate lead, qualify lead, make offer, close quickly, right? And so we talked about generating a lead. So now you've got a lead that's come in. Walk us through your qualification process, what you do.
Yeah, so again, this is if not just as important as actually qualifying the lead. And the first thing that we've implemented is just a simple survey, so that whether it's a dream supporter giving us a client or a social media ad or organic social media, they're all going to the same survey that asks like a series of questions. And we used to start out with like a short survey, which would get us even more applicants. But as you're aware, oh, perfect.
Is that on? Is this on your? For guys on pod. This makes for difficult podcasting, but on audio. Yeah. But I just pulled up Zach's website here, and first thing I pulled up here, there's this big giant chat with Rent Live Own down here. Walk us through your website on how people would. So I would imagine all your advertising, everything points to rentliveown.ca. Now, one of the things I'm going to tell everybody is here, this is one of the best rent-own websites I've seen out there. And I know it's been modeled off a lot of really good ones out there, but you have a couple cool things that is unique that you've done, and this is one of the best. So someone comes to your website, what do they typically do from here?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully hit apply now. I think that's what we always want.
I'm scared, Zach, I'm scared to hit this because you probably have the cookies all set here, and I'm going to start getting targeted with all these things.
Yeah, you will. Yeah, you will. That's really important as a marketer to have the retargeting, because, typically we're making, how many touch points, like 17, 20 touch points before someone's going to, end up buying anything, especially a house, right? So, get to the website. There is a video of myself, like talking kind of more about our program. Lots of call to actions, as you see, like lots of different apply nows.
Yeah, there's like really 7 of them on the homepage here, right? At least.
I do appreciate the compliment on the website. I honestly, like, I got plans for the V2 of the website that will even make it even better. Lots of content as well, so that we could get like ranked on the website. This is our Dream Supporter page. Again, we're hoping to get the photos of all the Dream Supporters out there. We're hoping to get video testimonials from some of our tenant buyers, just stuff that we're working on.
Yeah, and I know when we were working together, we did a lot of work together on your website, and I'll tell you, this is monumentally better than when we were working on this together, and it sounds like it's going to be even bigger when we go to the next step. So now, do you still use that bot on here, Zach?
No.
Okay.
Don't.
No, that's that.
No, we don't.
That kind of fell by the wayside.
Yeah, no, we funny story. We actually had an interactive bot that was, chatting, with the tenant buyers, getting them approved. I definitely do think there's still something there, but we kind of went back a notch and kind of made everything really simple.
Yep.
Because something that I've learned is just, you really got to have the foundation in order to scale, right? Growth only takes you so far. Like, you're going to put a card on top of a card on top of a card. Eventually, it's just going to come crashing down. So we're still kind of building that foundation.
Perfect. Okay, so someone comes to your website, they probably won't hit you want them to hit apply as soon as they land there, but they probably won't. They'll scroll, they'll watch videos, they'll read, they'll park it, they'll come back, and then finally, after you retarget them like 17 times and they keep seeing it, you know what? I'm going to go back, and then they hit the apply now button, and then they go through a short questionnaire. What kind of questions are on that questionnaire, Zach?
Yeah, so funny, we could have just applied.
Well, hang on, dude.
Well, I mean, we're asking basic questions, about first name, last name, contact information, but also in that's obviously, and then that's the adult application. So we've done a lot of work to our survey, honestly, a lot of work, because we found like we want to really make it easy for the first conversation. So, I think there's 3 or 4 different slides there, Russell, that is asking, 4 to 5 questions a slide. So we put them through the ringer, right?
Yeah.
If you want to
what's the most important information you need from first contact from them?
Yeah, and that's what I'm getting at. We asked 20 questions, but we only need 3. So we asked the 20, but we were really only looking for, how much down payment they have. Are they currently working? And what's their yearly household income? Right. So those are the big 3 for us. We do ask about the bankruptcy and consumer proposal, which is, I would say that's the wild card question, because you're actually able still to help people that have had that in the past. But we'll call it a wild card question. The most important 3 are definitely, you want to make sure they have savings. You want to make sure they have, some sort of household income, and you want to make sure that they're employed, like from an actual employer, not just earning money through one of the government plans or anything like that.
Okay. So I would imagine, as if we go through that, and I don't want to put all my own personal sensitive information out onto the interwebs here, I would imagine those questions are pretty early up in the process and of you doing that. And then I would imagine every time they have to click to the next set, you probably capture it. It captures that information. Even though if they abandon the survey, you still got it and you can follow up with them, I would imagine. And if you don't have that, quickly implement that as soon as possible, right? And then here's the other test I would have as a marketer of doing that. I would also find out how deep the person goes into the survey as well. The deeper they go, the more motivation they have at the same time. Like if somebody just fills in first name, email, and last name, and then goes in and they put a question in, oh, say this is stupid, and they abandon, they're not motivated. But if somebody goes through all 20 questions, they're motivated. They really want to work with you. Okay, so you get the information, you get the big 3 plus the wild card. Okay, where does that go? What happens? What's the next step in the process?
Yeah, so they get immediately after, they'll get followed up with just by an automated email. They get dropped into our CRM as a new lead. And then we have a lady on our team that's her role is basically we call her the homeownership specialist, and she will reach out to that client pretty well immediately. And that's where our main focus goes, to people that have completed the full survey. So that would be the next step. Goes into our CRM. She gets notified, reaches out to the client, has that initial discovery call, as we like to call it that.
Yeah. Zach, you need to brand, if you're calling these people dream supporters and all that, you need to have names of dreams in there: the alpha team, the beta team, the theta team, the Mr. Sandman or Mrs. Sandman, which is the supervisor of this. Have them all, have it all around sleep and dream or something, right?
That's a great idea.
The box spring team and the coil mattress. Today, this marketing message is brought to you by Russell Westcott, bringing some fire himself once in a while. Every so often, I can bring a bomb too, can't I?
I love it.
Okay, so person hits the form, they fill out the form, it goes to your CRM. Do you mind me asking what CRM you use?
Yes, we use Go High Level. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
I haven't heard that one. It's gohighlevel.com, I would imagine.
Yeah. We I guess a marketing team that we work with has white labeled it, so we just work off there, and we actually have a specific team member to build out Go High Level for us as well.
Perfect. Okay, so it comes into somebody in your office. I'm going to give her the name, as she's the dream catcher. Huh?
Oh, I love it.
She's the dream catcher, and then she makes the first phone call to the prospective tenant buyer. And what does that conversation kind of look like?
Yeah, so this is actually kind of probably one of my favorite parts, or my favorite things to share, because of all the things they can talk about, I think the main thing that we like to discuss is what's their why? What is this tenant buyer's why of working with our team? And it's just yes, she's going to confirm all the survey questions, right, that they put in and answered. But the first thing is really just, building the rapport and going into that tenant's world, and why do they want to rent to own? And I can't stress this enough, because when times get tough, it's really important that your tenant buyer has that strong why, has that desire of becoming a homeowner. We've turned down multiple clients that checked all the money boxes, we'll call them, but their why was they're entitled for the house, right? And we're the ones working with them for 3 or 4 years, right? Not really the investor itself. So it's really important to get that why and make sure it's strong.
Yep, cool. That's why this is a rent to own program, not a rent to fail program, right? Is because you invest into because let's put it this way, your investor doesn't win. The cream center of Zach Cahill doesn't win, and the other side of the Oreo cookie doesn't win unless the tenant buyer wins and buys the place. That's how this game works. Okay. So the dream catcher has the phone call. They get solid on the why. They confirm a few things. They get more information. What kind of more information and deeper information do you typically need at that part for the dream catcher to get?
Yeah, and I love the dream catcher.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Zach, maybe we should work one-on-one together or something.
Yeah, right. So the dream catcher, once confirming everything, I mean, at this point, the tenant buyer probably doesn't know too much about the rental.
Right.
They've read about it, so there's obviously an explanation about the program and how it works on that call, of course, and asking them, one of our best plays here is we can actually help them either way. So you'd have a lot of people that apply and they don't know if they can get a mortgage, right? Or they can do a rent to own. So we have both the options for the client. There's been hundreds of people that have applied and we just got them a mortgage with our broker, right? So we kind of offer both of those services, explain the program. And then if they're interested for us to, have a look at the next step, that's when I love talking about this. We actually get a small commitment, a refundable deposit of $150, and that would put them to the next step, which is when they would get connected to our mortgage broker, and then we begin the document collection phase.
Okay, so you then hand that off to a professional that does this for a living. The mortgage broker will get all their documents, T4s, notice of assessments, for lack of a better term, they'll unpack the wallet and the purse on the table, and the mortgage broker, that's what they do. Will sit there and find out if they're a good candidate for this program.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what's happened next is, everything goes to the mortgage broker. I mean, this is a challenge on itself, right? Getting people to send their information and things like that. So we get them to sign also something as well, send a small deposit, and then off they go to the broker.
Right. Nice. Okay. So let me just do a quick timeout here. And
there's the dream maker. Maybe?
The dream maker is the next part in the process. So gang, let's just do a quick recap. So what Zach has been telling us is you get lots of leads, let's call it 200 a month, and only 2 are coming through that would be probably of any good quality. They fill out some information, they go to the dream catcher, the dream catcher confirms this, sounds like a good quality candidate, then they get handed off to a mortgage broker to qualify to see if they can take the next step. So let's say out of the 200, we get 2. One of them looks like a really good, strong candidate, and they check all the boxes. What's the next step in the process?
Yeah, so the next step is the mortgage broker will actually create us what we call an action plan. So the action plan would, that's their approval document. Okay, so that's going to let us know, first of all, like why they can't get a mortgage right now. Is it new job experience? Is it bad credit? Is it, too much debt service? And it's going to have a clear outline of, what they're approved for as far as today's purchase price, what their down payment would be, what their monthly rent payment would be, as well as what their monthly savings credit would be. Because everyone that enters in our program, might have, 4 to 5% down payment. But when they exit the program, they need to have 7 to 10% down payment. So we're going to have all those numbers outlined on the action plan and the specific steps. And we work with the broker to create this. We don't just make him do it all. And the specific steps of how we're going to get this client a mortgage, right? Some are more detailed than others where, you need to talk to this banker and get a credit card for this amount and pay this amount every month. As well as
essentially you're forecasting and foreshadowing how this person's going to get a mortgage in 2 to 4 years from now.
Exactly. Like budget calculators, the whole shebang's on there.
Nice. So that's why, like I said, this is a rent to own program, not a rent to lose program. Okay. So they qualify, they've got the plan together. There's a few blemishes. They couldn't get a traditional mortgage. They're a good candidate for you. Okay. Then what's the next step in the process, Zach?
Yeah, so we just have a simple action plan call with the tenant buyer. So on this call, it's definitely a Zoom call. It usually takes about an hour, and we review the action plan in detail. So basically, presenting them with what we have. Here's our program. These are all the payment information, and answer any last minute questions that they might have. And I'll tell you, most of the people that do get to the action plan call end up signing up, which is amazing because again, like what are their other options? So they're just going to rent. But and after that, like basically just do the action plan call. They sign a letter of intent to work with us. And then we also get another deposit from them. And then that would move them on to the next phase. Okay.
So to this point, you've invested a lot of time and energy into this potential tenant buyer. And like I said, guys, this is where most do-it-yourselfers, this is where the people fall off of the rent to own train a little bit of it sounded great up until this point, but holy moly, there's an awful lot of hand holding, lots of work, lots of coddling, I have to deal with potentially 200 people coming in to only have one person spit out the back end. I don't have all this time and effort to do all of this, but you've systematized this and you've got people in place, you've got dream catchers and there's a whole bunch of dream stealers that are the people that are the suspects. And then you have the dream makers that come in there that make this happen. So the person qualifies. Then what happens after that? So they've qualified, all the boxes are checked. Now what's the next step in the process?
Yeah, so as soon as we get the letter of intent signed and we get a $2,500 deposit from the tenant buyer, we actually move on to the investor side of things. So this tenant buyer, it's funny, we actually get them to write their own story as well. And we pair that story with a financial report, like a pro forma, and that would get sent out to our active investors.
Wow. So this is where you go out to your investment pool and say, I've got one, they're qualified, here's their story, here's their background, here's how much money they have, here's the pro forma, here's the cash flows, here's the mortgage pay down, here's at the end, here's the 21% ROI that you're going to get in this time frame, and we'll go through a case study here shortly.
Yeah.
But so you put it out to the investor pool. Awesome. Let's say I'm interested. I send you a note back. Zach, I'm interested. What's the next step?
Well, Russ. So,
oh, look at he's going to close me here.
Things.
Everybody, watch. Zach's going to close me here. I better put my wallet and checkbook away.
Yeah, well, Russ. Unfortunately, that deal's already taken. But for real. So, for the investor side, we do actually on a similar process. But for the investor side, we also do have a letter of intent, and we have a small deposit that we collect from the investor, and that would actually. That's not done on we have an investor funnel as well, obviously. So just kind of skipping through that funnel from when we actually get a letter of intent signed from the investor, we would add you to our exclusive investor list to receive live deals in order of who signed up first. And I think that's really important because it's something that I've probably changed since the last time we spoke, Russ, because, a couple of years ago, we were doing first come, first serve. And it's very unfair. It's very chaotic. So to really systematize it, we actually have a pool of approved investors who are already ready to go, already have, an hour call with our team and know the full strategy inside and out. And the investors have signed a letter of intent.
Got it.
So once you're on that list, that's who would receive the deal in basically whoever signed up first. And we would send you an email with all the information. We give you 24 hours, 48 hours to review everything, ask us any questions. And, if you're satisfied with that tenant buyer, you just pop us an email back saying, I'm good to go.
Okay. So I have a feeling we're going to have to book another call just to go in depth into your whole investor process that you do as well. Are you open if we have a couple more calls, Zach, to really unpack all these things that you're sharing here?
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So what I want to do is I do want to show everybody here is I actually have pulled up. Let me just grab it here for a second. This is one of your investor sheets that you sent to me just recently of a deal. $210,000. Zach, can you buy it? Is that a house? And that's in Sudbury? Where is this?
Oh, we got a good deal on this one, Russ.
Is this an active one?
Unfortunately, we had to move quick. So we did match an investor like the same day I had sent it to you.
Okay.
But like I said, we're putting together 3 to 5 a month that are similar to this.
So $210,000, is that in Sudbury?
It is. Yeah. I mean, this is obviously with the market change that we've, we wouldn't be able to do this months ago. This was under asking. House doesn't need much work either. And we have a great tenant buyer.
Right. So somebody is coming in. If this is a sheet you would send out to your investment pool, you break it all down about what did this tenant buyer have up front?
This tenant buyer had a $10,000 down payment.
$10,000 down payment. So that's a huge benefit of rent to own is your tenant buyer coming in as a big giant down payment, right?
Yep.
Land transfer tax, buyout. So.
And we also are working on the updated sheet as well because it's not really visual friendly. And we also include a written pro forma out when it gets sent out.
Right.
But basically, this tenant had $10,000 as a down payment to go towards the home. So the initial investor was bringing just over $52,000 to the table as an initial investment. Yep.
Now you are in this one. You're forecasting. Maybe I just can't see it quickly. Here is your forecasting that the investor would get, and this
it's at the top.
Oh, at the very top. Oh, yeah. Man, look at you. So it's an annualized return of about 17%. From this property.
Exactly. And that's based on 5.25% mortgage rate.
Wow.
So 5.25% mortgage rate as well.
Right. And you can do a little better than that right now if you need to, but you built in a little buffer there as well. Oh, awesome. Exactly. Awesome. Okay. So I do want to be respectful for everybody's time. And I do have a call coming in here to be full transparency in probably about 10 minutes. So and I know everybody's going, Russ, you're just getting into the gold and the meat and potatoes of this. So we're not gonna wrap up yet fully, but I want to make a commitment to teaching more of this. And Zach, are you open for us to have a few more of these conversations like this and really bust down and maybe even do a webinar together or do something together that we can break this down even further for people? Are you committed to that?
Definitely. 100%.
Okay. So, guys, I am 100% going to commit to that as well. But before we do go, so if somebody is sitting here, Zach, I do have a couple questions I just want to wrap up with. If somebody is sitting here and they're looking out in the marketplace and they're bummed out, the interest rates are going up a little bit and margins are getting a little tighter, and maybe a value or two has dropped in certain markets. In certain markets they've gone up, and they're just feeling a little bummed out and they're feeling a little stuck right now. What advice would you have for somebody if they came to you and your turn, the coach? You're going to be my coach. I'm struggling, Zach, and I need a little bit of help. How can I get some help from you? How do you get me unstuck here with what's going on in the marketplace?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would suggest for us is, turn off social media and turn off the news. I've just been noticing a lot of, negative things going on in the news. And I think that's number one, to be honest. The next thing is just to realize that over the next year, 2-3 years right now, it's going to be one of the largest wealth transfers in history. The way things are going with the real estate market, there's lots of deals to be made, lots of people to be helped over these next 2 to 3 years. And just understand that fundamentally, in my opinion, real estate is the best investment on the planet, just because of the simple supply and demand, right? It's a long-term game. Interest rates goes up and goes down. We might be going into a winter right now, which we can talk about some of the adjustments rent-live owns made to even, get through the winter, right? Even to do rent-to-owns through in a market that's not appreciating like it was before. But just understand that it's just simple supply and demand, right? And Canada, immigrants coming to Canada every year. There's still a housing crisis across the country. There are multiple different markets you could be in and investing in and do well. Yeah. So I think for you, Russ, try to find an active partner that or become that active partner yourself, and put these deals together and get creative with the deals that you're putting together.
Woo wee, brother. Woo wee. Getting sweaty in here, brother. And that's not just because it's 35 degrees outside. Oh, hang on. Woo. Thank you for that, Zach. I needed that, right? We needed a little inspiration and a little kick in the backside sometimes to just get out there and do it. And that's before I do sign off here, Zach. I just want to offer you something. You are one of what I call the most. The quickest implementer of anybody who I've ever met. When you say you're a fast start, you're not fast. You're light speed fast. It's we talk about something and I give you an idea and I give you a thought process, and the next day I get a text message back and done. I go, what do you mean done? He goes, that thing you told me to do last night, I did it this morning. Right? I'm just wow, you're an instant implementer. The best way to say is you're fearless in many respects. You jump in, you figure it out, and you have always a smile on your face, and you always have a laugh as you're doing it. And this game isn't easy, but you do it with such grace and poise, and you're way beyond your years, my friend. Way beyond your years.
Thanks, Russ. No, It means a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome. And you know where it comes from. It comes from the heart and it comes from the truth. All right. Okay, gang. I am going to have to, I guess apologies. We just dropped fire and bomb after bomb after bomb. And I'm sitting here, I'm going to apologize that I have to cut this off at 1:20, right? But I will commit, and Zach and I will commit that we're going to bring out some more of these content pieces, and we will bring out more of these resources for you if you're interested in taking the next step. So Zach, if somebody is interested in contacting you, where's a good place for them to find you on the social airwaves?
Yeah, so social media, look at that. You got my website right there, Russ. Right. So you can pop me an email or contact me on social media. I definitely will share the links in this description below. And we're also in the midst of launching my personalized website as well at zachcahill.com. So depending on when you're listening, that could also be live.
The big Zach man. Get the power pose out there. So I expect to see all the dream catchers and dream supporters and all the branding around the dream. You can have different mattresses or something based on the different houses. Awesome. Zach, I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation here today, and there's so many more resources that we're going to be coming up with. Okay, gang, let's leave it there for today, and make sure you like and subscribe and share this message, and we'll talk to you very soon. Bye for now, everybody. Hey, I sure hope you enjoyed this video. If you are interested in moving forward with velocity, if you're interested in being a successful real estate investor, only 2 simple next steps from here. Number 1, below where you're watching this, there will be an opportunity for you to subscribe. And over here will be a hand-selected video for you to keep moving forward. Continue your journey forward. Just click on over here for that hand-selected video for you, and we'll see you on the other side. Thank you very much.